Ancient maps contain coastlines no human should have known about. This evidence suggests our ancestors explored the world long before recorded history. By the end of this journey, you will see human history in an entirely new light. We will examine charts that accurately depict Antarctica without its ice and reveal the Americas before Columbus set sail. How much of our past remains hidden in these forgotten documents? In a dusty corner of Istanbul's Topkapi Palace, a forgotten piece of parchment would rewrite history. The year was 1929, and a museum director named Halil Edham made a stunning discovery. He unearthed a world map drawn in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. At first glance, it was a beautiful artifact from the age of exploration, but a closer look revealed impossible details. The map depicts the eastern coast of South America with an accuracy that should not have been possible for the time. Yet this was not its greatest mystery. Drawn below the Atlantic Ocean is a landmass that should not exist on any 16th century chart. It shows the northern coastline of a continent we now call Antarctica, specifically a region known as Queen Maud Land. The most shocking part is what is missing. The map shows this land not as a frozen wasteland, but with flowing rivers, bays, and a terrain free of ice. Modern geological surveys using core samples and seismic data confirm that Queen Maud Land has been buried under a mile-thick sheet of ice for at least 6,000 years. This presents a single, staggering question. Who could have possibly charted Antarctica's true topography so long before recorded history? Admiral Piri Reis himself provided a clue. In his own notes, he stated that his world map was not an original work. He wrote that he compiled it from a collection of 20 older source maps, some of which dated back to the time of Alexander the Great in the 4th century BC. This means the original cartographers possessed a knowledge of the globe so advanced it included a continent humanity would not officially discover for another 300 years. The Piri Reis map stands as a silent, profound testament to a lost chapter of human exploration, suggesting that ancient seafarers mapped the world with a precision we would not replicate for millennia. The Zeno map presents a puzzle just as baffling as the chart of Piri Reis. Decades before Columbus, two Venetian brothers named Niccolo and Antonio Zeno claimed to have sailed the treacherous North Atlantic. Their adventures were published in a map from 1558, a document that should have been a curious relic of medieval guesswork. Instead, it shows geography with an impossible clarity. The map renders Greenland not as a vague, mythical land, but as a distinct island, its jagged fjords and coastline mapped with a precision that European explorers would not achieve for another 300 years. How could the Zeno brothers have known Greenland was an island when its icy shores were a mystery to the rest of Europe? The map's secrets do not end there. To the west, it clearly depicts landmasses that are unmistakably parts of North America, including a region that looks exactly like Nova Scotia. These are not the fanciful drawings of a cartographer's imagination. They are accurate representations of a continent that was, according to mainstream history, still unknown to European mapmakers. The Zeno narrative is filled with tantalizing clues, describing volcanic hot springs in Iceland and encounters with the local people of these new lands, suggesting early contact between Europeans and Native Americans. This level of detail points to a single, inescapable conclusion. The brothers did not invent their journey. They were likely working from meticulous Norse sailing records, logs kept by Vikings who had traversed these very waters centuries before. Yet, the accuracy of the Zeno map hints at something even more profound. It suggests that the Norse explorers, or perhaps the even earlier seafarers they learned from, possessed a sophisticated knowledge of the North Atlantic world, a knowledge that was somehow lost to history only to resurface on a map that challenges everything we thought we knew about the Age of Discovery. While Europe was still drawing dragons at the edges of its maps, Chinese cartographers were charting the world with scientific precision. The year 1418 saw the creation of a map so advanced it defies conventional history. The Ming Dynasty world chart depicts the entire globe with continents and oceans placed in their correct relative positions. It shows the distinctive boot of Italy, the Horn of Africa, and the sprawling landmasses of both North and South America. Most astonishingly, it includes the eastern coastline of Australia, a continent Europeans would not officially find for another 200 years. This is not a crude sketch. The map presents South America with its Amazon River basin rendered in stunning detail, a feat of geographical knowledge that should not have existed at the time. The source of this information is as important as the map itself. It is attributed to the legendary treasure fleets of Admiral Zheng He, whose immense armadas of hundreds of ships sailed the oceans decades before Columbus. According to the map's inscriptions, these voyages did not just travel to India and Africa. They supposedly went much, much farther. If this document is genuine, it suggests that massive Chinese fleets rounded the Cape of Good Hope, crossed the Atlantic, and charted the coasts of the New World. They may have even sailed the Pacific to map the shores of Australia and Antarctica. This would mean the Chinese circumnavigated the globe a full century before Ferdinand Magellan's expedition. How could such an epic journey have been forgotten? The answer may lie in a dramatic shift in imperial policy. Shortly after these voyages, a new emperor came to power in China. He turned the nation inward, disbanding the great fleets and destroying their records in an effort to isolate the country. The knowledge of these discoveries was systematically erased, surviving only in a few secret copies like the 1418 map. This raises a profound possibility. The sophistication of these charts might not have come from a single source. They could represent a compilation of geographical data, a legacy of ancient knowledge gathered over centuries through Silk Road trade networks and passed down by generations of sailors. Were the Chinese the original discoverers of the world, their monumental achievements wiped from history by political decree? The evidence is right there on the parchment, a silent witness to voyages that should not have been possible. Another map from the same era presents an even more direct challenge to our historical timeline. The Orontius Phineus world map of 1531 depicts the entire globe in a double cordiform projection, a sophisticated technique for its time. But its true marvel lies at the bottom of the world. There, Phineus drew a massive southern continent, its shape and features uncannily matching the land we call Antarctica. This is not a vague, speculative landmass. The map shows distinct mountain ranges, broad river systems, and a deeply indented coastline. These are not the features of an ice-locked wilderness. They are the geographical details of a temperate, ice-free continent. Modern radar technology has allowed us to peel back the ice sheet and see the bedrock below. The subglacial topography revealed by satellites matches the Phineus map with startling fidelity. The rivers on the map flow where modern science confirms ancient riverbeds lie buried. The mountains are positioned where we now know real mountain ranges exist under miles of ice. This level of accuracy is simply impossible for a 16th century cartographer to have invented. It means Phineus must have been copying from a source map, a chart drawn by someone who saw Antarctica not as a frozen desert, but as a living, green land. The implications are staggering. For the continent to be ice-free, this original survey would have to date back at least 6,000 years, to a time before the last ice age locked it in its deep freeze. Furthermore, the map's mathematical construction reveals another layer of mystery. Phineas calculated longitude with a precision that European science would not achieve for another 200 years. How did he manage this feat? He did not possess the accurate timekeeping instruments necessary for such measurements. The only logical explanation is that the ancient source maps he referenced contained this advanced geographical data, including the correct longitudinal placement of a continent that was, by his time, completely inaccessible and unknown. This points to a forgotten epoch of human civilization, a seafaring culture with the skills to navigate open oceans and the scientific knowledge to map the world with a clarity we would not recover for millennia. What happened to these master cartographers, and why was their profound understanding of our planet lost to time? Nearly a century after Phineas, another cartographic masterpiece would appear with an even more precise vision of the lost continent. French geographer Philippe Buache published his own map of the southern world in 1737, a work that was immediately met with skepticism from his peers. They dismissed his depiction as theoretical fantasy, for Buache presented Antarctica not as a single landmass, but as two distinct islands separated by a vast frozen sea. To the scientific establishment of the 18th century, this seemed like pure conjecture. Yet Buache was insistent. He claimed his work was not speculation, but was based on a synthesis of ancient source maps that had been passed down through the ages. For 200 years, his map was considered a curious historical footnote, a beautiful but incorrect guess. Then, in the 20th century, our technology finally caught up to his claims. The development of seismic sounding and later satellite radar allowed us to see through the thick Antarctic ice sheet for the very first time. The results were a stunning vindication of the French geographer. The data revealed that Antarctica is, in fact, composed of two major land masses, East Antarctica and West Antarctica. These two land masses are indeed separated by a massive geological trough, a deep channel that runs beneath the ice. Buache's mysterious inland sea was real. He had accurately portrayed the subglacial topography of a continent that was, in his time, completely unexplored and shrouded in impenetrable ice. How could he have possibly known this? The only logical answer is the one he himself provided. He must have been working from incredibly ancient source maps, charts drafted by a civilization that saw Antarctica not as a frozen wasteland, but as a land of open water and visible mountain ranges. This means the original survey of the continent had to occur in a remote epoch when the ice cap was either much smaller or non-existent, a period that geologists confirm ended over 6,000 years ago. The Buache map is more than just an accurate guess. It is a precise geographical snapshot of a world that vanished at the end of the last ice age, a ghost image preserved on parchment that points directly to a sophisticated, globe-spanning civilization lost to the deep past. But the most controversial of all these ancient charts might be the one that simply should not exist. The Vinland map is a world map dated to around 1440, and it depicts a landmass west of Greenland labeled in Latin as Vinland. This name comes from the Viking sagas describing a fertile region in North America that Leif Erikson explored around the year 1000. The map shows this land with a surprising degree of accuracy, corresponding to the northern tip of Newfoundland, where the only confirmed Norse settlement in the Americas has been excavated. If genuine, this document would be the first known cartographic representation of any part of the Americas, created more than 50 years before Christopher Columbus set sail. The implications are monumental, proving that knowledge of the New World was not just held by a few Scandinavian explorers, but was being copied and circulated by European mapmakers. Yet the Vinland map is shrouded in doubt. Since its public unveiling in 1965, it has been subjected to relentless scientific scrutiny. Initial analysis of the ink seemed to confirm its medieval origins, but later, more advanced examinations told a different story. Researchers discovered a compound called anatase in the ink, a form of titanium dioxide that was not commonly used in ink production until the 20th century. This finding pointed strongly toward a modern forgery, an elaborate hoax designed to rewrite history. But the story does not end there. Subsequent studies have argued that the anatase could have formed from medieval materials under certain conditions, and the parchment itself has been radiocarbon dated to the correct period. This leaves us with a maddening stalemate, a document that is either a brilliant fake or a priceless relic, with science unable to deliver a definitive verdict. The true significance of the Vinland map may not lie in its authenticity, but in the questions it forces us to ask. If this map is a forgery, why did the forger choose to depict a part of North America with such specific, accurate detail decades before archaeologists would unearth the proof at Elands Ox Meadows? And if it is genuine, what does it say about the other maps that have not survived? The Catholic Church and other powerful institutions of the era had a vested interest in maintaining a certain version of history, one that granted Spain and Portugal exclusive rights to the New World under the Treaty of Tordesillas. Any map that suggested prior knowledge, especially from non-Catholic Norse sources, would have been politically dangerous, something to be hidden away or destroyed. The Vinland map, real or not, stands as a powerful symbol for all the lost knowledge that might have once filled the archives of Europe, a ghost of a possibility that our understanding of the age of discovery is still profoundly incomplete. The mathematical perfection of the Portland charts is a mystery that cuts to the very heart of our story. While the grand world maps suggest forgotten global voyages, these more humble navigational documents reveal a technical precision that should not have existed. From the 13th century onward, Mediterranean sailors relied on these detailed portlands or harbor-finding charts to navigate from port to port. They are covered in a spiderweb of lines called room lines, radiating from central points to create a web of constant bearing courses. A sailor would simply lay a ruler along the line connecting his departure and destination, and the chart would tell him exactly what compass heading to follow. This was practical magic for its day, but the magic has a dark secret. The accuracy of these charts is too good. They depict the entire Mediterranean basin, from the Strait of Gibraltar to the Levant, with a scale and proportion that is almost flawless. This level of cartographic precision should have been impossible without an advanced understanding of spherical trigonometry and, most critically, the ability to calculate longitude. Yet Europe would not possess the necessary timekeeping technology to accurately determine longitude for another 400 years. So how did the creators of the earliest portlands manage it? The lines on the parchment point to an unsettling answer. They were not creating this knowledge from scratch, they were copying it. The consistency of the charts across generations, with errors that are faithfully reproduced rather than corrected, strongly implies they were all tracing their lineage back to a single, master source map of incredible antiquity and accuracy. This source was so perfect that for centuries no one dared to improve upon it, only to duplicate its sacred geometry. The mystery deepens when these charts venture beyond the familiar waters of the Mediterranean. Some portlands, like the famed Dulcet chart of 1339, extend south to map the western coast of Africa with a detail that should have been unknown to European cartographers for another 100 years. They show the correct bulge of the continent and the placement of islands like the Azores and Canaries with startling clarity. This was not guesswork. It was the work of a culture that had already surveyed these coastlines, a culture that understood the true shape and size of the world with a scientific confidence that medieval Europe had lost. These charts feel like the surviving technical manuals of a much older seafaring civilization, their original purpose forgotten, but their perfect data preserved by generations of practical sailors who knew it worked, even if they could not explain why. Just a few years after the Piri Reis map surfaced, another Ottoman masterpiece would echo its impossible claims. The Hadji Ahmed world map of 1559 presents the globe in a stunning circular projection, a vision of the world so complete it seems to defy its own era. Its depiction of Europe and Africa is masterful, but its true secrets lie far to the west. The map renders the western coastline of North America with a clarity that should not exist, showing California correctly drawn as a peninsula. European maps of the time consistently portrayed California as a massive island, a geographical error that would persist for over a century. Yet here, decades before European explorers would even chart this coast, an Ottoman cartographer got it perfectly right. The map's foresight does not end there. In the far north, it clearly depicts the narrow channel of the Bering Strait, accurately separating Asia from North America. This waterway would not be officially discovered and named by the Russian explorer Vitus Bering until 1728, a full 169 years after this map was published. So how did Hadji Ahmed know? The cartographer himself provides the crucial clue in his own notes. He stated that his world map was not an original creation, but a compilation. He claimed to have drawn from a library of 20 ancient source maps, a collection that included charts from the libraries of Alexandria, works from ancient Greek geographers, and sophisticated maps from the golden age of Arabic science. This admission points to a continuous thread of high-level geographical knowledge, a tradition of global cartography that was being preserved and passed down while Europe was still emerging from its dark ages. The implications are profound. The accuracy of the Hadji Ahmed map suggests that these ancient source maps contained a correct understanding of the entire Pacific Rim, from the west coast of the Americas to the eastern edge of Siberia. This was a global vision, a unified geographical model that understood the relationships between continents in a way that would be lost and then painfully rediscovered piece by piece over the following centuries. This was not a lucky guess. It was the legacy of a forgotten science, a testament to a time when the world was already known. Half a world away from the courts of Europe, a different kind of map was being crafted, one that reveals a global network of knowledge we rarely acknowledge. In Korea in 1402, scholars of the Joseon dynasty completed the Kangnido map, a sweeping vision of the known world that humbles the European charts of the same era. While Western maps were still often filled with mythical beasts and theological speculation, the Kangnido presents a shockingly sober and scientific geography. Africa is correctly rendered with its distinctive triangular shape, a fact Portuguese explorers would only confirm decades later. Europe is not a vague land of legend, but a continent of recognizable peninsulas like Italy and Iberia, labeled with over 100 specific place names from major cities to river systems. The Mediterranean Sea is mapped with a shape and proportion that would not be out of place in a modern atlas. This level of detail is not just impressive, it is historically explosive. It proves that sophisticated geographical data was flowing from west to east along the Silk Road and other trade routes, long before the so-called Age of Exploration began. The Kangnido was not created in a vacuum. It is a product of the Mongol Empire's brief unification of Eurasia, a period that opened unprecedented channels of communication and information exchange between distant cultures. Chinese, Arab, and even European knowledge was being synthesized in Korean cartographic centers, but the map holds one final, breathtaking mystery. To the far east, across a vast ocean from China, the Kangnido depicts a large, enigmatic landmass. Its shape is crude, as if drawn from second-hand reports, but its position and size are provocative. Many researchers now argue this distant land can only be the Americas. This suggests that Asian mariners, perhaps Japanese fishermen blown off course, or even Chinese treasure ships on an unrecorded voyage, had encountered the western shores of the New World and brought back tales of its existence. The Kangnido map forces us to abandon a Eurocentric view of discovery. It paints a picture of a pre-modern world that was far more interconnected than we ever realized, where knowledge of continents was not discovered by one culture in one triumphant moment, but was instead a mosaic pieced together over centuries by many civilizations, most of whom have been written out of our history books. Centuries before the Kangnido, a different library held the keys to the world's geography. In the 2nd century, the Greek scholar Claudius Ptolemy worked in the legendary Library of Alexandria, compiling all known geographical data into a revolutionary work called the Geography. This was not merely a map, but a technical manual containing precise coordinates and instructions for drawing the entire inhabited world. Ptolemy's original maps have been lost to time, but when Renaissance scholars rediscovered his text and attempted to reconstruct his vision, they produced charts that contained startling secrets. These reconstructions show a world far larger and more detailed than medieval Europe could have imagined. Ptolemy described a massive southern continent he called Terra Australis, a land that would not be officially discovered for another 1,500 years. While his depiction was speculative, its very existence on the map hints at ancient reports of lands far to the south, stories that may have been preserved in the scrolls of Alexandria. Even more impressive are the details he got right. He accurately positioned the island of Sri Lanka in relation to the Indian subcontinent, calculating its latitude with remarkable precision for an age without telescopes or accurate clocks. His work describes the Indian Ocean as a largely enclosed sea, a concept that suggests an awareness of the complex archipelagos of Southeast Asia, knowledge that could only have come from sailors who had ventured through the Malacca Strait. How did a scholar in Roman Egypt know these things? The answer lies in the source of his information. Ptolemy was not an explorer himself. He was a brilliant compiler, synthesizing thousands of travelogues, merchant logs, and military reports that were available in the greatest repository of knowledge the ancient world had ever known. The persistent accuracy of certain features through centuries of copying and translation points to a single conclusion: these were not lucky guesses or mythical inventions. They were hard facts drawn from genuine exploration reports filed by Greek, Roman, Persian, and Arab navigators. The coastlines on his map were not drawn from fantasy, but from the meticulous records of seafarers who had actually been there, their collective knowledge pooled in one place before the library itself was consigned to ashes. Ptolemy's world map, as we reconstruct it, is a ghostly echo of that lost globalism, a testament to an ancient network of trade and exploration that understood the scale of our planet long before we thought possible. These intricate webs of sticks and shells seem like simple artifacts at first glance, yet they contain the ocean itself. Crafted by Polynesian navigators, these stick charts are not maps of land but dynamic diagrams of the sea. They chart invisible highways across the Pacific, encoding the subtle behavior of swells as they bend around islands, the specific rhythm of waves reflecting off distant shores, and the precise pathways of stars that glide overhead. A shell might represent an island, while the carefully arranged sticks illustrate the dominant wave patterns that radiate from it for hundreds of miles. A master navigator, trained from childhood in this oral and tactile tradition, could run his fingers over these charts and read the ocean as easily as we read a street sign. He could feel the vessel's movement beneath him, correlate it with the star positions above, and know exactly where he was in a featureless expanse of water, guiding his voyaging canoe with unerring accuracy over thousands of miles. This was a science of the sea, developed over centuries of exploration and settlement. It allowed the Polynesians to achieve one of humanity's most astounding feats of colonization, discovering and populating islands scattered across 25 million square miles of ocean. They found tiny specks of land like Easter Island and Hawaii, voyages so immense that the islands themselves were literally invisible for almost the entire journey. They were sailing not to a destination they could see, but to one they knew was there, guided by a deep, ancestral memory of the waves. This mastery forces us to reconsider the limits of prehistoric travel. If Polynesian navigators could cross the Pacific, could others have crossed the Atlantic or the Indian Ocean? Their stick charts stand as a powerful testament to a different kind of knowledge, one not written on parchment but woven into the very fabric of a culture, proving that the ancient world was likely far more connected by sea than our history books have ever dared to suggest. Smuggled out of Lisbon in 1502, the Cantino Planisphere was an act of cartographic espionage. An Italian agent named Alberto Cantino secretly commissioned the map, risking everything to steal Portugal's most guarded state secrets. What he delivered to his patrons in Italy was not just a map, it was a bomb. It revealed that Portuguese knowledge of the world was decades, perhaps even a century, ahead of every other European power. Its depiction of the newly discovered land of Brazil is unnervingly precise, showing the sweeping curve of its eastern coastline with a clarity that official Portuguese expeditions would not document for several more years. This was not a rough draft of discovery, it was the finished product, suggesting Portugal had already charted these lands in secret long before they ever announced their existence to the world. The map's true masterpiece, however, lies across the Atlantic. It renders the entire western coast of Africa with a staggering level of detail, from the bulging Gulf of Guinea to the southern tip of the continent. This was information so valuable that the Portuguese crown guarded it with lethal seriousness, considering any leak a direct threat to their monopoly on the spice trade. Yet the Cantino Planisphere's most revolutionary detail is a single, empty expanse of blue. It shows the Indian Ocean as open water, a vast sea leading directly to India. This single feature shattered 1,500 years of geographical dogma. The ancient authority, Ptolemy, had insisted the Indian Ocean was a landlocked sea, cut off from the Atlantic by a mythical southern continent. The Portuguese, by simply drawing what their sailors had seen, proved him wrong. How did they achieve this accuracy so quickly? The map itself offers a silent, tantalizing clue. Its rendering of the Indian subcontinent and the island of Madagascar is too perfect, too informed. This level of detail hints at a possibility that challenges the entire narrative of European discovery. The Portuguese may not have been the first to chart these waters. They could have been using much older maps obtained through their early trade contacts with Arab and Indian navigators in the Indian Ocean, men who had been sailing these routes for centuries. The Cantino Planisphere, therefore, stands as a dual revelation. It is both a record of Portugal's daring voyages and a ghostly echo of a far older, pre-existing knowledge of the world, a global geography that Europe was only just beginning to steal for itself. The year 1507 saw a German cartographer commit a breathtaking act of geographical foresight. Martin Waldseemüller's Great World Map did more than just draw new lands. It gave one of them a name that would echo through history. For the very first time, the word America appeared on a map, honoring the explorer Amerigo Vespucci. Yet this act of naming was just the beginning of the map's mysteries. Waldseemüller depicted the New World not as a vague extension of Asia, but as its own distinct continent, separated by a vast and previously unknown ocean. This was a revolutionary idea, one that fundamentally reshaped the European understanding of the globe. The true shock, however, lies along the western edge of this new continent. The map traces the Pacific coastline of South America with a startling degree of accuracy, showing its long, slender shape curving southward. This is utterly baffling. No European expedition had sailed along that coast by 1507. The Spanish explorer Vasco Núñez de Balboa would not even lay eyes on the Pacific Ocean from a Panamanian peak for another 6 years. Ferdinand Magellan's fleet, the first Europeans to navigate the strait at the continent's tip, was still over a decade away. So how did Waldseemüller know what the western side of South America looked like? The most compelling theory points to secret knowledge. Portuguese and Spanish cartographers were intensely protective of their discoveries, treating new charts as state secrets more valuable than gold. It is possible that Waldseemüller, working in the Duchy of Lorraine, obtained a smuggled copy of a highly classified Portuguese chart, one detailing a secret voyage that history never officially recorded. This map's vision extends even further into the impossible. Beyond the southern tip of South America, Waldseemüller drew a long, thin land bridge connecting the new continent to a massive southern landmass. He was depicting a continuous coastline running from Brazil all the way to Antarctica, a geographical concept that would not be proven or disproven for centuries. He had no way of knowing that the stormy Drake Passage actually separates the two continents by hundreds of miles of open sea, so why include this feature? Waldseemüller was a scholar deeply versed in the classical geographical texts of Ptolemy and others. His map is a fascinating fusion, a patchwork of the very latest clandestine exploration reports stitched together with ancient Greek theories about the necessary balance of land in the world. He was blending cutting-edge, stolen data with age-old speculation, and in doing so, he accidentally created a snapshot of a lost idea, a vision of the world that was part revelation and part legacy, a ghost of ancient knowledge refusing to fade away. Another map, drawn decades before Columbus, holds equally profound secrets. The de Verga World Map, created by Albertin de Verga between 1411 and 1415, presents a vision of the globe that humbles its era. Its circular projection is not just beautiful artistry, it is a sophisticated mathematical construct that maintains the correct proportions of continents with a precision that should not have been possible for a medieval cartographer. Look at its depiction of Africa. The map clearly shows the continent's southern coast curving eastward, strongly implying it could be sailed around. This was drawn a full 70 years before the Portuguese explorer Bartolomeu Dias would first round the Cape of Good Hope and prove this geographic fact to a stunned Europe. How did de Verga know? The answer may lie in the direction he looked. His rendering of Asia is even more startling. The map details the intricate coastlines of India and the islands of Southeast Asia with a clarity that European sailors would not achieve for another century. This was not guesswork, it was the work of someone with access to accurate sailing charts of the Indian Ocean, the kind of knowledge that Arab and Indian merchants possessed and carefully guarded. The map's most explosive feature, however, lies in the vast emptiness of the South Atlantic. There, de Verga drew a large, unmistakable landmass, a continent shaped suspiciously like the eastern bulge of South America. If this interpretation is correct, it means a European map depicted the New World 80 years before Columbus's famous voyage. The existence of the Diverger map forces a difficult question. Was this brilliant cartographer a lone genius piecing together rumors from distant ports? Or was his work evidence of a wider, underground current of geographical knowledge flowing through medieval Europe, a secret understanding of the world's true shape that was kept out of official records and taught only in whispers? This single piece of parchment suggests that the great discoveries of the age of exploration were not discoveries at all, but rediscoveries of lands that had been known and mapped long before. Venice in 1436 was a city built on secrets, its wealth flowing from trade routes known only to its most trusted captains. It is in this world of guarded knowledge that the cartographer Andrea Bianco crafted his world map, a document that places islands in the Atlantic Ocean with a precision that defies its time. He charts the Azores and the Canary Islands not as vague specks, but as accurately positioned landmasses, their locations corresponding almost perfectly with our modern satellite charts. Yet one island on his map stands out for its explosive implications. Far to the west of Portugal, Bianco drew a large, rectangular island labeled Antalya. Its location in the mid-Atlantic aligns almost exactly with the longitude of Puerto Rico, a cornerstone of the Caribbean archipelago. This was not a mythical place like Atlantis, but a tangible landmass drawn with the same confident detail as the coasts of Europe. Even more telling, Bianco's map is not a silent picture. It is a practical navigational tool, complete with detailed sailing directions and distance calculations between these Atlantic points, demonstrating that this was information meant for use, not just for display. How could a Venetian mapmaker know the precise location of a Caribbean island 56 years before Columbus ever set sail? The answer may lie not in a single voyage of discovery, but in a quiet, continuous tradition. The accuracy of Bianco's Atlantic geography suggests that European fishermen, perhaps Basque whalers or Bristolian cod fishermen, had been making regular, unrecorded voyages across the Atlantic for generations. They would have had no reason to announce their discovery of rich fishing grounds to kings or popes. For them, it was simply business, their knowledge passed down orally and through secret pilotage charts like the one Bianco seems to have accessed. His depiction of the West African coastline adds another layer to this mystery. He shows details of the African bulge that Portuguese caravels would not officially document for another 20 years. This hints that the flow of secret geographical intelligence was not just moving west, but also south, pooled from the experiences of many sailors who ventured beyond the map's edge. The Bianco map feels less like a work of prophecy and more like a leaked document, a rare public glimpse into a vast subterranean network of maritime knowledge that operated outside of official history, charting the New World long before it was ever called new. The Fra Mauro map is a masterpiece of cosmic ambition. Created around 1450 by a Venetian monk, this enormous circular planisphere is over 2 meters across, a breathtaking tapestry of ink and gold that represents the absolute pinnacle of medieval European mapmaking. It contains a world of information that should not have been possible for its time, a global vision stitched together from countless whispers of travel and trade. Look at Africa. Fra Mauro does not depict it as a truncated landmass ending in an impassable torrid zone, as was common. Instead, he draws its southern coast with a definitive eastward curve, explicitly stating in his notes that the continent is circumnavigable. This was drawn 40 years before the Portuguese explorer Bartolomeu Dias would prove it by rounding the Cape of Good Hope. How could a monk in a Venetian monastery know this? His gaze stretches even farther. The map is littered with detailed annotations about the spice-rich islands of Indonesia, describing Java and Sumatra with a specificity that European ships would not confirm for another generation. Most astonishingly, positioned off the coast of Asia, he includes a remarkably accurate cluster of islands labeled Sipangu, the lands we know as Japan. This was decades before any European vessel would reach those shores. Fra Mauro himself was refreshingly transparent about his sources. He wrote that he consulted the travel accounts of Marco Polo, but he also made a far more revealing admission. He stated he relied heavily on Arab world maps or Mappi Mundi, and on the direct testimony of contemporary travelers and merchants. This is the key to the mystery. His workshop in Venice was a clearinghouse for global intelligence, a place where the latest Portuguese sailing charts were cross-referenced with ancient Ptolemaic coordinates, and most importantly, with the sophisticated cartography of the Islamic world. Arab traders had been navigating the Indian Ocean and the South China Sea for centuries, their knowledge far surpassing that of Europe. The Fra Mauro map is not a product of European genius in isolation. It is a tangible artifact of a forgotten globalism, a synthesis of knowledge flowing along the Silk Road and across the Indian Ocean, funneled into one Italian monastery. It shows us that the world was already profoundly interconnected, its continents and cultures known to each other through a vast, informal network of exchange that mainstream history has consistently overlooked. This single map forces us to ask what other global connections have been erased from our collective memory. Just 4 years after the Bianco map, another Venetian chart would push the evidence for pre-Columbian voyages from a possibility to a near certainty. The Pizzigano chart of 1424 is a starkly practical document, a portolan chart meant for use at sea, not for display in a library. Its vellum is worn, its lines are those of a working sailor, and it focuses intently on the vast emptiness of the Atlantic Ocean. There, plotted with confident precision, are a series of islands that simply do not belong. The largest is a long, rectangular landmass labeled Antillia, its shape and scale a clear match for the island of Puerto Rico. To its north and east, the chart shows a cluster of smaller islands with names like Satanas and Saya. Their arrangement and forms are uncannily familiar, corresponding almost exactly to the Lesser Antilles, including islands like Guadeloupe and Dominica. This is not a vague, hopeful guess about what might lie across the ocean. It is a specific, detailed chart of a real archipelago, drawn 68 years before Christopher Columbus would ever stumble upon it. The map's utility confirms its authenticity. It is not decorated with sea monsters or legendary kings. Instead, it is covered in the tools of the working navigator, a web of room lines radiating from central wind roses, and most tellingly, detailed sailing directions and distance calculations between these Atlantic points. These are not theoretical distances, they are practical measurements, the kind that could only have been derived from actual voyages, from sailors who had logged their time at sea and tracked their progress across the waves. Someone had sailed to these islands, mapped their coastlines, calculated the leagues between them, and brought this data back to a Venetian cartographer. The implications are staggering. It means that by the 1420s, European sailors, likely Portuguese or Italian, were making regular, unrecorded trips across the Atlantic, navigating directly to the Caribbean. They were not searching for a new route to the Indies. They were traveling to a known destination, a place they called Antillia, following a sea road they had already charted. This was not exploration, it was a commute. The Pizzigano chart is a smoking gun, a piece of hard evidence that the age of discovery was not a sudden explosion of courage and curiosity, but the public unveiling of a trade route that had been a closely guarded secret for generations. How many other charts like this were lost or deliberately destroyed to protect the immense commercial advantage of knowing a new world that the rest of Europe still believed was a myth? The very first European map of the Americas holds secrets its creator never intended to reveal. Drawn in 1500 by Juan de la Cosa, the man who served as Christopher Columbus's own navigator, this chart is a cartographic time capsule from the dawn of a new age. At first glance, it seems to document the initial, tentative discoveries of the Spanish crown. Yet a closer inspection uncovers details that challenge the official story entirely. The map presents the New World not as a confused jumble of new sightings, but with a clarity and confidence that defies the brief timeline of European presence. Consider the island of Cuba. Columbus was absolutely convinced it was a peninsula of mainland Asia, a geographical error he insisted upon until his death. But Juan de la Cosa, the man who sailed under his command, drew Cuba correctly as a long, distinct island. This was more than a simple correction. It was an act of quiet rebellion, a testament to a navigator's practical knowledge over an admiral's stubborn dogma. The map's foresight extends far beyond the Caribbean. It traces a vast stretch of the northern coast of South America, a coastline that, according to official records, had not yet been explored by any European ship. How could de la Cosa have charted lands that were still unknown? The most telling clues are not the coastlines but the flags. The map is dotted with the banners of Spain and Portugal, but also of England, planted along territories those nations would not officially claim or even visit for many years to come. These are not prophetic symbols. They are markers of intelligence, evidence that de la Cosa was compiling information from a wide array of unrecorded voyages. Smugglers, privateers, and rival explorers were already crisscrossing the Atlantic, their discoveries kept secret to avoid royal taxes and political complications. The Juan de la Cosa map is therefore a paradox. It is the first European depiction of the Americas, yet it feels like a summary, not a beginning. It captures a moment when official discovery was desperately trying to catch up with a flood of clandestine knowledge that had been flowing for decades, a hidden history of exploration written on parchment by a navigator who knew more than he could ever officially say. While the Pizzigano chart revealed secret voyages to the Caribbean, the Portuguese crown was compiling its global knowledge into a single, breathtaking volume. The Miller Atlas, created in 1519, is a masterpiece of cartographic art and state secrecy. Its pages shimmer with gold leaf, depicting a world far more known than any European power would ever admit. The atlas showcases the coast of Brazil with a fluid, intimate accuracy, as if drawn by someone who had spent years sailing its shores. Africa is rendered not as a mysterious land, but as a mapped territory, its interior rivers and kingdoms carefully labeled. This was the definitive picture of the world according to Portugal, a visual declaration of their maritime empire. Yet the atlas's most explosive secret is tucked away in its depiction of the East. Floating in the vastness of the Southern Ocean is a large, unmistakable landmass. Its northern coastline is clearly defined, complete with gulfs and promontories that align perfectly with the northwestern shore of Australia. The cartographers even gave it a name, calling it the Land of the Holy Spirit. This was drawn more than 80 years before the Dutch ship Dijfken would make the first recorded European landing there, and over 2 centuries before Captain James Cook would officially claim it for Britain. How could the Portuguese have mapped a continent they supposedly never saw? The sheer precision of this coastline betrays its origin. It was not the result of a single, lucky ship blown off course. This was the work of systematic, secret exploration, a sustained effort to chart the Pacific and Indian Oceans. The Portuguese, upon rounding Africa and bursting into the Indian Ocean, did not find an empty sea. They found it crisscrossed by sophisticated Arab and Indian trading vessels, navigators who had been using detailed charts of these waters for centuries. The most logical explanation is that the Portuguese acquired these charts either through trade, espionage, or alliance, and incorporated their data into their own secret master maps. The Miller Atlas, therefore, is not just a collection of Portuguese discoveries. It is a layered document, a palimpsest of global knowledge. It represents the culmination of Arab sailing lore, Asian geography, and European ambition, all fused together under the Portuguese flag. This magnificent book was a state secret of the highest order, its contents guarded as fiercely as any treasure fleet, because it proved that the world was already known and that Portugal's power rested on knowing it too. The Rots Atlas was a weapon disguised as a book, created in 1542 by the French hydrographer Jean Rots. This stunningly illustrated volume was commissioned by King Francis I with a single, urgent goal: to break the Iberian monopoly on the riches of the East. Its maps were France's bid for empire, a deliberate challenge to the closely guarded Portuguese and Spanish cartographic secrets. Yet for all its political purpose, the atlas inadvertently reveals a world far more explored than any monarch would admit. Its pages show the labyrinthine coasts of Southeast Asia and the sprawling Indonesian archipelago with a fidelity that seems to leap ahead of history. These were not the vague, speculative shorelines of new discovery. They were precise, confident renderings of lands that European ships had, by all official accounts, only just begun to tentatively approach. How could Rots have drawn these islands with such intimate detail? The answer lies in the very nature of this clandestine cartographic war. Rots himself was a double agent of sorts, a Frenchman who had previously worked for the Portuguese crown. He brought with him not just his own skill, but likely smuggled knowledge, fragments of Portuguese master charts that contained data from their secret voyages, and perhaps more importantly, from the ancient maritime maps they had acquired from Arab and Asian traders. This stolen knowledge crystallizes most remarkably in his depiction of Japan. Years before any meaningful European trade was established there, the Rots Atlas presents the Japanese archipelago not as a mythical cipher, but as a recognizable set of islands, their distinct shapes and relative positions mapped with an accuracy that would not become common in Europe for decades. This was intelligence, plain and simple, proving that geographical truths could not be contained by royal decrees or threats of execution. They flowed through the porous borders of espionage, bribery, and the shared language of sailors, creating a hidden web of understanding that connected rival courts. The Atlas stands as brilliant proof that the official record of exploration is a pale shadow of the truth, a public narrative that hides a frantic, underground race to map a world that was already known. Gerardus Mercator's world map of 1569 was more than a navigational tool. It was a mathematical key to the oceans. His famous projections solved the greatest problem facing sailors: how to draw a spherical world on a flat sheet so that a straight line on the chart represented a constant compass bearing at sea. This innovation unlocked long-distance navigation, but the true secret of his map lies not in the lines he drew, but in the data he used to draw them. Mercator did not create his world from scratch. He was a compiler, a master synthesizer of secret knowledge. His depiction of the far north is particularly telling. He shows the Arctic not as a solid, frozen cap, but as a broken ring of large, mountainous islands surrounding an open polar sea. For centuries, this was dismissed as a myth. Yet modern sonar mapping of the seabed beneath the Arctic ice reveals a startling truth. The underwater mountain ranges and plateaus Mercator drew a line with real subglacial features like the Lomonosov Ridge. He even included a massive whirlpool at the pole, a legendary feature that may have been a misunderstood attempt to represent the dynamic, churning ice pack. But his southern continent is where the mystery deepens. His Antarctica, while stretched and distorted by his projection, is not a blank space. He details specific coastal features, bays, and even what appear to be rivers flowing from its interior. When we compare his work to modern maps of the subglacial topography, the correlation is haunting. The coastal shapes he drew match the actual bedrock coastline hidden under miles of ice. How could he have possibly known this? Mercator himself wrote that he consulted what he called ancient tables, along with the most current Portuguese and Spanish charts. This admission is a crack in the door to a hidden library of geography. His revolutionary projection required precise longitudinal data for continents he had never seen. That data almost certainly came from a patchwork of sources, from Norse sailing logs for the north to smuggled Portuguese charts for the south, and perhaps even fragments of those same ancient maps that informed Piri Reis and Oronce Finé. Mercator's genius was not just in his mathematics, but in his ability to weave these disparate threads of lost and stolen knowledge into a single, coherent system that could guide ships across the globe. His map is a silent testament to a simple, staggering fact. The world had been mapped long before, and he was one of the last to see the fading blueprint. Abraham Ortelius assembled the world in a single book. His Theatrum Orbis Terrarum, published in 1570, was not just a collection of maps, it was the first modern atlas, a systematic attempt to compile the entire known globe into one cohesive volume. This was a monumental shift from the individual, hand-drawn charts of the past, representing a new era of standardized geographical knowledge. Yet, within this forward-looking work, Ortelius embedded details that seemed to defy the timeline of his own era. Look at his depiction of North America. While many cartographers who came after him would stubbornly draw California as a massive island for over a century, Ortelius got it right. His map clearly shows California as a peninsula firmly attached to the mainland, exactly as it is in reality. This was not a lucky guess. It was precise information, and it hints at the quality of the sources he was consulting. His vision extended far beyond the Americas. Floating in the vast southern seas, his map includes a landmass labeled Terra Australis non dum cognita, the southern land not yet known. While the shape is speculative, the northern coastline of this continent bears a striking and unsettling resemblance to the actual northern coast of Australia. He details bays, capes, and indentations that align with the geography of the Gulf of Carpentaria and the Arnhem Land region. This was drawn decades before the first documented European ship, the Dyfken, would make landfall there in 1606. So how did Ortelius know? The cartographer himself was remarkably transparent about his methods. He openly acknowledged that his world map was a synthesis. He credited not only the latest reports from Spanish and Portuguese explorers, but also ancient authorities like Ptolemy, and even sourced maps from the Islamic world and the great trading centers of Asia. His work was a crossroads, a place where the cutting edge of 16th century exploration met the surviving geographical wisdom of antiquity. Ortelius was acting as a funnel, collecting fragments of knowledge that were in danger of being lost and preserving them in a printed form that could be replicated and spread. His atlas marks the precise moment when cartography was transitioning from a secret art into a public science, yet it simultaneously serves as a final, grand repository for ancient truths. The accurate coastlines on his map were not his discoveries. They were his inheritance, the last echoes of a much older understanding of the world, carefully stitched into the very fabric of the first modern atlas. The scientific battle over the Vinland map has only deepened its enigma. Advanced spectroscopic analysis has focused on a single, stubborn clue: the presence of anatase titanium dioxide in the ink. To some researchers, this compound is a modern fingerprint, a clear sign of a 20th century forgery. Yet other experts have mounted a compelling counter-argument, suggesting that anatase could have formed naturally in medieval ink through the degradation of iron gall compounds or from contaminants in the water used for its production. This leaves us with a frustrating stalemate, where the same chemical evidence can be interpreted in two completely different ways. The mystery only grows when we examine the parchment itself. Radiocarbon dating confirms the animal skin is genuine, placing its creation firmly in the early 1400s. This means the physical canvas of the map is authentic, even if the ink drawn upon it remains under suspicion. The most baffling piece of this puzzle, however, is the geography itself. The map depicts Greenland not as the vague, mythical blob seen on other period charts, but as a distinct landmass with a highly accurate northern coastline and a deeply indented eastern shore. This portrayal matches the reality of Greenland's geography with a precision that European cartographers would not achieve for several more centuries. How could a forger in the 1900s have drawn Greenland with such stunning accuracy, decades before modern aerial and satellite surveys would reveal its true shape to the world? The Vinland map forces us to confront the limits of our own scientific certainty. It is a document that is simultaneously too accurate to be a medieval fake and too chemically anomalous to be easily accepted as real. This ongoing debate is about more than just one piece of parchment. It highlights the fragile nature of historical evidence itself. How many other artifacts, equally contentious, hold secrets about our past that we are not yet equipped to understand? The lines on these ancient maps are now being measured by computers, and the results are undeniable. Modern researchers have subjected charts like the Piri Reis map to rigorous statistical analysis, comparing their coastlines pixel by pixel with satellite imagery. For certain regions, the correlation coefficient exceeds 90%, a number that indicates near-perfect alignment. This is not a matter of vague resemblance. The specific curves of a bay, the precise angle of a cape, the exact indentation of a river delta, all match their real-world counterparts with a mathematical certainty that rules out coincidence. This level of accuracy should be impossible for the era in which these maps were drawn. The Portland charts present an even deeper puzzle. Statistical studies of their scale reveal a consistent proportionality across the entire Mediterranean Sea. The distance from Gibraltar to Alexandria maintains the same exact ratio to the distance from Rome to Tunis. This is a feat of measurement that should have required a unified geodetic survey, a continent-wide effort to map every shoreline with the same measuring stick, something medieval Europe simply did not possess. The maps are not just artistically correct, they are mathematically perfect in a way that should not have been possible without an advanced understanding of the Earth as a sphere and the tools to calculate its curvature. The statistical evidence points to a single, inescapable conclusion. The cartographers who drew these works were not explorers sketching what they saw on the horizon. They were technicians copying data. They were working from precise source materials that already contained this breathtaking geographical truth. The coastlines on their parchment were not inventions, they were inheritances, passed down from a civilization that had already mapped the world with a scientific precision that would be lost for centuries. This data was so accurate, so reliable, that generations of sailors copied it faithfully without ever daring to correct it, because they knew in their bones that the original was right. The numbers do not lie. They tell a story of sophisticated ancient knowledge, a story that was either forgotten through catastrophe or perhaps systematically suppressed by institutions that found such advanced prehistory inconvenient to their own version of events. The cumulative weight of these maps cannot be explained away as simple coincidence. From the ice-free shores of Antarctica on the Piri Reis map to the confident Caribbean islands on the Pizzigano chart, these documents form a chorus of voices from different eras and cultures, all singing the same bewildering song. They tell us that our planet was mapped with stunning accuracy long before the recorded age of exploration. While it is easy for skeptics to question the authenticity of a single artifact, the pattern that emerges across dozens of these charts is far more difficult to dismiss. How could so many independent cartographers, separated by centuries and continents, all depict lands they should not have known about and do so with such impossible precision? The evidence points to a single, staggering conclusion. There must have been a prehistoric era of global seafaring, a forgotten chapter when ancient mariners traversed the world's oceans. These master navigators surveyed coastlines from the Americas to Australia, creating a sophisticated geographical database that was later lost to time, preserved only in scattered fragments that were copied and recopied by later generations. This was not the work of one civilization, but likely a network of cultures whose knowledge was pooled through trade and exploration. The Chinese treasure fleets, the Polynesian voyagers, the Norse explorers, and the Arab traders may have all been inheritors of this ancient science, not its inventors. Their collective memory, etched onto parchment and stick charts, survived just long enough to challenge our modern understanding of history. These maps are not just curiosities. They are profound challenges to the official timeline of human achievement. They ask us to reconsider everything we thought we knew about our past, suggesting that our ancestors were far more interconnected and technologically capable than we have ever given them credit for. The next time you glance at a world map, remember that its familiar shapes might have been known thousands of years ago, a legacy of a lost age of discovery waiting to be rediscovered. What other secrets of our ancient world remain hidden, just waiting for the right map to surface? Share your thoughts on these cartographic mysteries in the comments and subscribe for more journeys into history's greatest